what is threat hunting to you guys? When we talk about threat hunting, as you guys have mentioned, it's a proactive cybersecurity approach, right? Here, what we are trying to aim for is to identify and mitigate the threats that may have evaded your traditional security measures which are in place in your organization, right? So here what we do, we have some, you can say, systematic or continuous search for signs of any malicious activity within the organization's network and the systems. Okay. So unlike any reactive security measures that rely on predefined rules and signatures to detect known threats, threat hunting basically focus on, like looking out for data to, uncover any anomalous behavior or any IOC that may indicate any presence of undetected threats. Okay, so we do have what, like we have hypothesis, and so also in that, like uh, driven threat hunting is there, which is sort of a structured methodology in your threat hunting. Okay, where your security analysts, they uh, put some educated guesses, or we call them hypothesis, about any potential threat or any security incident based on the available data to them. Okay, or based on the available intelligence and their own expertise. So these hypotheses will be guiding their hunting process. It will be helping your analyst to focus, on some specific areas or some behaviors that are likely to indicate any malicious activity over there. Okay, so see, when we talk about threat hunting, it's more of a proactive approach, as I mentioned. So it's more of a proactive approach that will be going beyond your traditional reactive security measures like your antivirus software or your firewall, these kind of things. So instead of waiting for alerts or indicator of compromises, your threat hunting will be actively searching for signs of malicious activity before they can escalate into more of a bigger incident or breaches. So it's like a continuous process. Like let me put that pointer. Proactive approach and more of like a continuous process. When I say continuous process, it's an ongoing, and you can say more of an, uh, iterative process that requires, constant monitoring or analysis and investigation. So it is proactive, continuous process. It has diverse techniques. Okay. So in threat hunting, you can say it has variety of techniques or tools or methodologies are used to look out for any potential threats. So it can include data analysis, anomaly detection, your behavioral analysis also, your threat intelligence analysis, and manual investigations over there. So a lot of different techniques and tools will be used, and human expertise will also be there as part of that. So when you talk about human expertise, so in threat hunting, it really, you can say that it relies on the expertise and intuition of the one who is performing it. Like, those security analysts, they should be skilled. That's why, like the expertise, with the help of their expertise, they can basically interpret the data, they can identify the patterns, they can recognize any signs of malicious activity, right? That might have evade, or that may evade our detection systems. Correct. So that's why when we also talk about, threat hunters or threat huntings, we also put a word, next to them, SME. Do you know what does that mean? So yeah, as I was saying, along with that threat hunting, we just generally add on this word, which is SME. Correct. So SME, as mentioned over here, it's like subject matter expert, and as I mentioned, the expertise will be required whenever they try to, go for the threat hunting part. So as I mentioned, these things will be there, and when we talk about in terms of threat hunting, okay, it's kind of a breakdown of it, like proactive approach, continuous process, diverse technique, and human expertise will be required. Uh, Along with that, like oftenly you will encounter a word like, hypothesis with threat hunting. So when we're talking about in terms of threat hunting, okay, moving on to the next slide, we have certain types of threat hunting. We have structured threat hunting, unstructured threat hunting, and situational threat hunting as well. So when we talk about structured threat hunting, it involves your systematic and predefined approach for identifying the threats. This method basically follows a set of some already established procedures, the methodologies and tools. So it is often involve the use of some specific detection techniques or your IOCs and threat intelligence feeds to search for any anomalies or any suspicious activity. So for example, you can select security team might conduct structured threat hunting by regularly analyzing network logs, endpoint data, and any other sources of telemetry, right? Using predefined queries or signatures. So they may also they can also utilize some threat intelligence sources to identify any known attack patterns or IOCs which are associated with any emerging threats, right? When you talk about unstructured one, so this is more flexible, I would say, and of a creative approach that does not rely on any predefined methodologies or tools. Instead of that, you know uh, it motivates, you can say, your security analysts to take an advantage of their expertise, their knowledge, their intuitions, and their investigative skills to explore some diverse data sources and to look out for any potential threats over there. So in this method, you can say it will be involving like thinking outside the box of an approach and exploring some unconventional, places to detect malicious activities. For example, an analyst might engage in unstructured threat hunting by manually reviewing network traffic patterns, examining any unusual file access patterns, right? Or looking out for any user behavior for signs of any insider threats, right? So they can also conduct like open-ended investigation, based on any emerging security trends or suspicious anomalies which has been detected during routine monitoring. So it's that way, out of the box approach. When we talk about situational threat hunting, in situational threat hunting, it focuses on understanding the, what is the unique context and environment of the organization, uh, to, uh, take that approach as per your threat hunting to tailor your threat hunting activities according to that. So it will be involving like analyzing your specific situational factors like recent security incidents, any industry trends, or organization objectives, right? And regulatory requirements also, so that we can prioritize the threats and as per that we can allocate the resources also. So for example, if you have a security team, so they might engage in situational threat hunting when they have a following like following a major security breach or a significant change in their organization infrastructure. So they may adjust their hunting strategies and techniques uh, based on the current threat landscape which is there, right? Attack is going on in their specific base organization, as per that. So organization, so they may adjust their threat hunting strategies and their techniques based on the current landscape, organization's risk tolerance, and depending on the criticality of the assets which are at risk, right? So they may, for example, they may prioritize hunting for threats targeting sensitive data or critical infrastructure, or those kind of components, right? So if you feel like, okay, some new kind of an attack is happening, a new group is there which is targeting some these kind of a specific critical assets, so we'll perform threat hunting as respect to that, depending on that situation. I hope that makes sense, right? So in short, structured threat hunting, they follow some predefined methodology and tools. Unstructured threat hunting, they rely on creativity and intuitions. Situation threat hunting, depending on the specific context or the environment of the organization, it depends on that. So what might be the current threat landscape? As per that, we do the threat hunting over there. Then we do have its framework as well. We have gain and expand visibility, analyze intel, form a hypothesis, see hypothesis again over here, create the threat hunting hunt analytic, execute the hunt, investigate and follow up, revise the hunt analytic, right? When you talk about gain and expand visibility, so in this initial step, when we're talking about, okay, the very first one, it involves like what we are doing, collecting and aggregating data from various sources within our organization network and the system. So as I was saying, in gaining and expanding the visibility, right? The very first one. So here we collect or we aggregate the data from various sources. within our organization's network and the systems, so that we can, establish some a good view of the environment, right? So that we can have a good idea about the environment in which you're working in. So we'll be looking out for the network traffic logs, your endpoint telemetry of those logs, security event logs, or any other like these kind of a relevant sources over there, right? So, for example, as an analyst, we may deploy networking monitoring tools. You guys are asking like endpoint detection and response. EDR agents will also be there. Your SIM solutions will be also there. Your security information and event management systems, so that we can collect and we can centralize those data from different sources of the organizations, or you can say we are centralizing and collecting data from across the organization's infrastructure. So gain and expand visibility is that having an eye to each and everything and collecting those logs from there. Then we have analyzed the intel. So in this part, your threat intelligence feeds and your external source of information, they are analyzed to identify any IOC, indicator of compromise, your TTPs, tactics, techniques, and procedures. Can I say in tactics we can put, wait a minute, initial access, right? Like getting the first foothold into the target network or system. So like exploiting any unpatched software vulnerabilities, phishing emails, taking advantage of a weak password. Initial access can be done along with that, right? Any lateral movement, right? Example of these things, moving through a network after any initial compromise so that we can find some valuable resources or data, right? Tactics would be that. If you talk about in terms of techniques, would be like using stolen credentials, exploiting trust relationship, abusing misconfigured systems in that way, right? Persistence also can be put over here, maintaining access to the compromised system or network over a long term. So tactics for persistent may be involving like installing backdoors, creating new user account, or hiding malicious files, in that way. That would be tactics. When we talk about techniques, that would be, so technique as I mentioned, and you guys have also given good answers. Like these are some specific methods or approaches which are used to attain or achieve those objectives, right? So things which have been part of your tactics, how we are achieving it, like the specific methods or approaches which are using it would be part of your techniques. So for example, can I put sending a phishing email would be part of your techniques only? See, for example, let's suppose if our tactics was to perform reconnaissance, right, to gather the information, correct? If my tactics says that I have to go for the reconnaissance, as in gathering the information. In order to achieve that, we can definitely go with the phishing part, right? To gain the information about the target. That would be the technique. Different techniques would be there. If you open the MITRE attack framework for the same, you will see a lot of tactics and techniques present over there, doesn't it? So here attackers, they can send phishing emails so that they can get some sensitive information that can be used in order to perform any further attacks over there. Correct? So we can do the credentials, we can get those credential informations also from them. So I believe so. If we let's suppose open MITRE attack framework. Just on a quick part, not part of the course, but just giving an idea for others. Yeah. Can you see guys? Tactics and techniques being displayed over here for ignorance. Oh yeah, see, phishing for information. It's right over there. Make sense now? Right? Step by step instructions which are followed by the attackers. Yes, in order to, yes, how to implement those specific techniques in that tactics. correct? That will be procedure, step-by-step instructions in order to implement those specific techniques within a given tactic, right? So, for example, in procedure like credential dumping, a procedure where attackers use various techniques like like exploiting operating system vulnerabilities or utilizing some tools to extract the account credentials from any compromised systems, data encryption, encrypting stolen data before extracting it to evade detection and maintain confidential. Like step by step, how to achieve those things will be part of your procedure only, right? That would be over here in terms of TTP. After that, that will be part of analyze intel, which we are talking about. That will be part of analyze intel only. Okay. So here, I'm just repeating again, your threat intelligence feeds, your external sources of information, they are analyzed to identify the known indicators of compromise or tactics, techniques, and procedures which are associated with any emerging threats or any malicious actors. So, for example, if your team is there, which may subscribe to some threat intelligence feeds, which are provided by some cybersecurity vendors or any industry-specific information sharing organizations are there, or government agencies are there, as per that. So you analyze those intel. So they analyze this intelligence to identify any relevant IOCs, like for example, any malicious IP address or any domain names, any file hashes or attack signature like that. So, for example, if you talk about IOC in terms of threat intelligence platform, have you guys heard about Alien Vault, Priyanka? Yeah. So there you can get the threat intelligence feeds also. For example, do you want to see that? That's Intel platform only. Can you see this? Yeah. Let's by category. If I put it into Trojan any zombie, for example, CV is in reference to that. Can you see some IOCs, guys? Too many actually. CVs, file hashes, URL, domains. So, but yeah, and just for your additional benefit, can you see? First of all, we can integrate these things into our, security control. Like in your SIM solutions, also you can integrate these things, and directly you can scan for those IOCs over there. Apart from that, you can also integrate it with your system. Can you see run scan option is there? So if I click on it, it will literally scan for these IOCs in my system and see if there is any presence of this malware or not. Sounds interesting? Ganesh, exactly. They're using that only. See, API integrations. There you go. Like for example, if you might have heard about Splunk, right? SIM solution. We can integrate them over there. So in Splunk, you might have seen on the left hand side we have an application section, correct? Apps section, isn't it? In those apps, we have an OTX apps also, Alien World OTX apps. You can download over there and you can integrate with the API. So this API integration will be required and you can integrate it over there. These things can also be done. Sounds good? Okay. The point is you have to make your return account over here. So in that way, this is just for the reference purpose I have shown you. But these are the platforms, and this is what I was talking about in terms of those IOCs part. Okay. Then we have form a hypothesis. Okay. Uh, see, when I talk about hypothesis, okay. See, hypothesis-driven threat hunting is there. Okay, there's something which is known as hypothesis-driven threat hunting. So in hypothesis driven threat hunting, our analyst, our security people, they will be creating some hypothesis based on the available data, based on the intelligence and their understanding of the organization's environment and the potential threats. So these hypotheses, they are, you can say, obviously, I am saying, like, I have mentioned that before also, they are the educated guesses about any specific threats or any security scenarios that may be present within the organization network or systems. Okay. Then we also go for the, like, in this hypothesis driven threat hunting, we go for the guiding investigations also. So once your hypotheses are established, guiding investigation. So once the hypotheses are created, they will be, serving as like a roadmap in order to, conduct our targeted investigation and analysis. Okay. So our security people, they will be focusing their efforts on validating and, looking the hypothesis for examining relevant data sources and looking for evidences that will be supporting or even either contradicting the scenario over there. Okay. So it will be working like a roadmap to us, like that hypothesis. Then we have iterative process also along with that in hypothesis. See, iterative process, like, in hypothesis driven threat hunting, when we talk about, it's an iterative process where your hypotheses are continuously refined and updated based on the new information which we get or any new findings which we have got. Okay. So this allows the organization to adapt, the threat hunting strategies and, to stay ahead of evolving threats. So when we talk about example, like for example, hypothesis, your attackers, your threat actors, they are, for example, conducting any reconnaissance activities on your organization network. Okay. And they're preparing for a targeted attack. So over here, hypothesis will be doing what? It will be doing the justification. So hypothesis is based on the detection of unusual network scanning activities, which is originating from any external IP addresses and targeting some specific network segments which are, linked up with your critical infrastructures. We perform the investigation. Our security analysts, they investigate network traffic logs, firewall logs, IDS alerts to identify patterns of scanning behavior and identify the source of the reconnaissance activities. We perform the validation, uh, analysis of the collected data. It will be confirming the presence of any unauthorized scanning activities which is originating from multiple other external IP addresses. So further investigation will be also done, which will be revealing some evidences that someone was trying to perform a port scanning or enumeration attempts were done, which was targeting the vulnerable services and the systems. And then on the base of that, response is there. So based on the findings, security team, they will be taking the immediate actions to block the malicious IP addresses, fixing up those vulnerabilities in the target systems, and implementing some additional monitoring and detection measures to prevent future reconnaissance attacks over there. So this is how, like, basically hypothesis uh, can be part of it or can help you to that, right? Getting back to the point, when we talk about in terms of threat hunting framework, again, uh, form a hypothesis as I mentioned over here. So based on the analysis of visibility data and threat intelligence, your security analyst, they can create hypotheses about any potential threats or any suspicious activities in the organization environment. So these hypotheses, they will be working like what? They will be working like your educated guesses or theories about the presence of any specific threats or attacking vectors. So for example, a hypothesis could be that any APT group is using spear phishing emails in order to deliver the malware payloads to employees in the finance department. So this hypothesis is based on the observed patterns of suspicious email activity and the known TTPs which are associated with the APT group targeting a financial organization. That would be a hypothesis, in short, an educated guess. Clear? Then is fourth one, great. Create a hunt analytic. So in this one, your security analyst, they will be developing some specific hunt analytics or detection rules based on the formatted hypothesis. Okay. So these analytics, they're designed to proactively search for evidence of any suspected threats or malicious activities in the organization's data. So for example, a hunt analytic would be involving like creating a custom SIM solution rule to detect unusual patterns of file access or execution behavior, which is with the delivery and execution of malware which are associated with the hypothesis written over there. Okay. So in that way, we'll be creating a hunt analytic, and then we execute the hunt. Fifth option is execute the hunt. Execute the hunt means like once your hunt analytics are created, your hunters they'll be executing them against the collected data to search for any suspected threats or malicious activity. So it will be involving like what running queries, scripts, or you can say some automated processes to identify any relevant security events or any anomalies which has occurred over there. So for example, your security team they will be creating hunt analytics to uh, query your endpoint logs, network traffic data, and any other sources to identify any instances of any suspicious file execution behavior or any indicative of hypothesized attacking campaign, right? Then we go for the investigate and follow up. Simply when your potential security events or any anomalies they are identified during the hunt, your security analysts they'll be conducting further investigation to validate the findings and determining the extent of the threat. So this will be involving like analyzing additional contextual information, conducting forensic analysis also, verifying the severity of potential threats. So for example, once you have detected any suspicious file execution behavior on your endpoints, several endpoints in your any of the department, like for example finance department, so as an analyst it will be like you'll be investigating further by analyzing the file hashes, examining network connections. You'll be reviewing your user activities logs to confirm if there is any presence of the malware or any identification of affected systems along with that. So here we'll be investigating and following up. Like as I mentioned, forensics will also be you can say including the conducting forensic analysis also will be part of it, right? So we got for file hashes, what all the processes are running. Maybe some processes are running in the memory. We do the memory analysis also in that way, and then revise the hunt analytics. So finally, based on the findings of the investigation and any lesson learned from the hunt, as a security analyst or as a hunter, you revise and refine the hunt analytics or detection rules in order to improve their effectiveness in detecting the similar threats in the future. So this iterative process it makes sure some continuous improvement of threat hunting capabilities. For example, after confirming the presence of apt malware campaign maybe, or identifying some gaps in your initial hunt analytics, you will be doing what? You will be updating the detection rules to include additional IOCs, or you'll be refining the criteria for identifying similar threats in the future hunts. So it's like lesson learned scenario through which you will be improvising your approaches and making it more better. So this is nothing, this is just a framework for a threat hunt. Okay. Then some steps are there for threat hunting: collection and process data, establish the hypothesis, hunt, identify threats, and respond. Okay. Collection process data means, as I mentioned before, you'll be collecting some relevant data from various sources within the organization network and system. So this data can include a network logs, traffic logs, endpoint telemetry, security event logs, or any other sources of information that may be containing some indicator of malicious activities. So once they're collected, your data needs to be processed and normalized for the analysis. So for example, as I mentioned, like your security analysts or your hunters, they deploy network monitoring tools, endpoint detection and response agents, and your SIM solution systems to collect some data from across the organization infrastructure. Like this will be giving them a quite visibility to the environment also, right? And they can extract some relevant information like IP addresses, file hashes, or user activities along with that. Then second is establish the hypothesis. Based on the analysis of the collected data and whatever the threat intelligence is available, you'll be formulating some hypothesis about those potential threats or suspicious activities within the organization environment. So those hypotheses will be serving like an educated guess again for or theories about the presence of any specific threat or attacking vectors. For example, any hypothesis could be could be that a certain group of endpoints within the organization is compromised by a new variant of malware that is evading your traditional antivirus detections. Okay, that is evading them. So this hypothesis is based on observed anomalies in your endpoints data and some known evasion techniques which are associated with that particular malware family. So you create those hypotheses basically over here. Okay. So that hypothesis was based on the anomalies which has been observed and your endpoint data and the evasion techniques which are associated with that malware which has been identified. Then we go for the hunt. Once the hypotheses are established, as a security analyst, you conduct some proactive searches or hunts within the organization's data to gather evidences which will be supporting the hypothesis. Okay, or it can refute also. It can be going against that also. So hypothesis because it's an educated guess, right? But doesn't mean it's always correct. So either it can support it or it can refute it. The hunting. So in hunting, you can say it will be involving various tools, techniques, and methodologies to identify the signs of any malicious activity that may have been overlooked by our automated security controls. So, for example, security analysts they may conduct a hunt by querying the endpoint logs for processes, uh, you know, for the process which are you can say exhibiting any suspicious behavior, like creating or modifying system files, maybe, or establishing any unauthorized network connections over there, or accessing some sensitive data over there in that way. So they may they may also analyze network traffic patterns for indicator of compromises, those command and control communication channels or data exfiltration in that way. So we basically hunt for such things. Then we identify the threats. So during the hunt, we'll be identifying and prioritizing potential threats or any security incident based on the evidence which we have collected. So it will be involving like correlating the findings across different data sources, analyzing attack patterns, and assessing the severity and impact of the identified threat. So for example, after analyzing your endpoint and network data, you can identify several endpoints which are giving the same symptoms, which are consistent with a malware infection. So we can like they correlate the information with network logs showing connections to known malicious IP addresses, indicating any potential compromise by a botnet in that way. So we identify those threats, and then you finally respond to it. So once threats are identified, your security analyst or your hunter, they will be initiating a response plan to contain and mitigate the impact of the threats, because containment is equally important in order to limitize the impact of it or the scope of that attack. So we'll be isolating our affected systems, removing malicious artifacts, updating our security controls, implementing remediation measures, fixing up with the patches in that way, so that now we can it will be like a lesson learned scenario also once you have responded to it, so that we can prevent such kind of attacks in the future, right? So for example, like you can say upon confirming any presence of malware on compromised endpoints, security analysts they can isolate the affected system from the network to prevent the further spread of the infection, right? Sagar, exactly. So they can deploy any after that they can deploy any antivirus updates and conduct forensic analysis so that they can identify what is the root cause of the compromise, and they can implement the measures so that we can enhance our endpoint security. So once we have hunted, we have identified the threats. Okay, that this is a threat, this is how it has happened. We'll be responding to it, as in we put into the containment zone on an isolation ward, just like in corona, for example. You were encountered with a coronavirus, right? So you guys were put into the isolation zone or isolation ward. Why? So that corona won't be spreading it out and affecting other people, correct? Just like a malware. So once we have identified there's a threat, okay, we have hunted it down, we got to know there is a threat present in our systems. What I will do, I will put that system out of the network, okay, so that malware won't spread out and impact or infect other systems, right? So we cut it down from the network, we isolate it, we put it into a containment zone where you can say later it will be analyzed. Where we'll be reading about that malware, the functionality of that malware, and we like for example, we can put those things into a sandbox environment. When I say sandbox environment, for example, we'll try to make it uh, in a bounded way so that malware won't jump out and go beyond those boundaries, right? So we put those things in a sandbox environment, analyzing the malware, learning about its functionality, its IOCs, everything. We remove it by fixing up with the patches, and once it is fixed, then we put it back into the network, and we make assure we assure that such kind of a things will never ever happen again in the future. That will be like a response to it. Does that make sense? And backups will also be involved. Like, once it is patched, then backups will be used to load up the data back to the system, and then it is put back into the network to perform its business operations. So data collection and of course the analysis, you can say, they are used in threat hunting. Basically, it enables your or helps your security teams, I would say, to gather and examine some relevant information from various sources so that we can identify any potential threats or any security incidents. So, for example, data collection, when we talk about, it will be like gathering information from different sources in the organization's network and systems, right? As I mentioned again, like it be it network traffic logs or endpoint security event logs, application logs, or any other sources that may contain some indicators of malicious activity. So, see, the goal here for the data collection is to gather as much as like relevant data as possible, so that we can give a very what do we call it, like comprehensive view of the organization's security posture. Okay, so in you can say in threat hunting, when I say that, like data collection from different data sources, like network traffic logs, so which will be captured from your like routers, switches, firewalls to monitor the communication between the devices. Endpoint, okay, telemetry, if you talk about like Saga, for example, which you were mentioning. So data which is collected from your devices, like your workstations, servers, mobile devices, like any process execution, file modification, network connection, those things, right? Security event logs, IDS, antivirus, SIM solutions, right? To record any security related events and alerts. Application logs, records which are generated by any business applications, web servers, databases, providing you the insights into user activities and systems interactions, right? So for example, if you deploy network sensors and endpoint agents across your organization's infrastructure to collect those telemetry, we call them telemetry data from different sources. So they configure logging settings on network devices and security controls to capture relevant events and alerts, right? So they integrate third-party threat intelligence feeds to get their data with information about known threats and indicator of compromise. And data analysis is also done later. So we'll be examining the collected information to identify any patterns, anomalies, and indicators of malicious activity. So it will be like requiring security analysts to apply various techniques, tools, and methodologies in order to uncover any potential threat that may have evaded our any automated security controls. So analysis data analysis will be done. It will be like helping us to correlate the data from multiple sources to gain some or get some understanding of security events and the incidents over there, right? So you can do the correlation analysis. We identify the relationship between different data points to detect any suspicious patterns or behaviors, which is indicating any malicious activity. Statistical analysis will also be there, you know, using statistical methods to identify any anomalies in data that may signal security breach or unauthorized access. Behavioral analysis is also there, analyzing your user and system behaviors to detect any deviation from normal behavior or normal patterns. Because if there is any deviation from the normal pattern of behavior, it will be considered as your abnormal activity or anomalous activity over there, right? So it will be also indicating any indicator of compromise. Signature based analysis is also there. I'll just write it down so that you guys can remember them. In data analysis, when data is collected, we perform data analysis, right? So in that, what do we have? We have correlation analysis, correlating things with each other. Statistical, behavioral, signature based, and you can say lastly threat intelligence analysis. Signature based analysis will be comparing the collected data against any known signature or patterns of known threats so that we can identify any matches or similarity. Uh, Threat intelligence analysis, when I simply means like, we are taking advantage of external threat intelligence feeds, like this, like OTX, Alien Vault OTX, and databases, so that we can identify what are the IOCs, what are the TTPs associated with any known threat actors and the campaigns. So as a security person, you can analyze the network traffic logs to look out for or to identify any unusual communication patterns or any traffic spikes that may indicate there was a DDoS attack or any data exfiltration attempt. So you can examine your endpoint telemetry data to identify any process execution suspicious behavior, like for example any attempt to access sensitive files or execute some malicious commands. And you can correlate the security event logs from different systems to identify any coordinated attacks or any insider threats targeting critical assets in different ways. So these things are basically part of your data collection and analyzing of your data. So with the help of that organization, they can proactively detect and respond to potential threats, which enhance or makes your organization security posture more stronger and minimize the risk of the security breaches and incident in that way. So that would be for data collection. And next is for IOC. I believe everyone knows what is an IOC, right? Which you've already seen that. So IOC, when we talk about, it stands for indicator of compromise. So it's like an evidence, or you can say piece of evidence or any information that tells you or that indicates that organization's network or system has been compromised or it is potentially under attack. Okay. So with the help of IOC, they help us to identify, detect, and respond to the security incidents more better. So ISDs can be of various types. You can say file-based, network-based. File-based IOC would be like MD5, SHA-256, SHA-250, those hashes I'm talking about. Network-based IOC, it would be like IP address, domain names, URLs, ports numbers, port numbers, that way. Email-based IOC will also be there, like email addresses, subject lines, URLs. Oh, sorry, not URL, I would say. Sender domains, email headers in that way. Behavioral IOC is also there. Like it will be including like patterns of suspicious or malicious behavior which are observed in the system logs, like any unusual logging attempts, for example, unauthorized access, or any abnormal system processes. All these are what? These are different types of IOCs, we can say. Okay. Clear? So these IOC can be helpful in terms of detection and in terms of investigation, threat intelligence sharing, also in every that bit of way. Okay. Now, okay, let's see something in terms of practical also, to look out for any process which is running in the memory. Okay, okay. So see, as I mentioned, this volatility can be used for looking out for any malware also, which is inside the memory dump, or regarding inside a memory. And with the help of volatility, you can hunt for those things also. So, for example, let's see how can we do that. I was trying to set up the lab, but actually lab is giving some trouble. Hmm. Man, this is not opening it. Just I'm trying to open the lab, as you can see over here also. Just trying to open it. Hunting for things. Let's see. Okay. This is a validative framework actually. I'm just trying to see one thing. Machine is giving some kind of a issue, nothing else. Okay, just a minute. Right. Okay. Validative framework, as mentioned, it is used for memory analysis. So just to give an idea how it looks like, how it works, how it can be utilized for hunt things. I'll just give you and show you a couple of options over here. So, okay. If I write volatility.exe -h, if I do that, let's see. I'm just trying to open the help menu. I'll just enlarge the screen in case if it's not visible. So just nothing. I just use a CMD. Try to open into that folder volatility.exe -h. I ran that volatility framework application. You can say executable file, and -h is there for the help menu. So it gives you tends to list out those help options for you. What all help options are, what all features are there in the volatility framework, along with that supported plugins. See, -image is also quite important out of them. Where it is. I just saw it. Information. Okay, file name is there when you file to use when opening an image. Profile is to use the profile which kind of a system, like name of the profile to load. It has to be mentioned so that you can perform the volatility framework. Verbose information is there. Image, I saw images recently. Where did I miss it? Here, image information. Identify the information for the image which will be used, like if there is any malicious malicious image which is there in the system. To extract the information through that, we'll be using image option over here. So I'll just show you how those options looks like. Multiple options are there. Okay, so we'll see a couple of them. Like command line is also there, malware find is also there, maldump is also there, proc dump option is there, process dumping option is also there. So okay, let's do one thing. Let's get with that. Cryptography, not in that way. I didn't say cryptography, by the way. I didn't say cryptography. Okay. Let's see if I write volatility hyphen f stuxnet VM we are trying to look out for and trying to look out for its image information. Okay. So first we are trying to do, guys, we are trying to identify the profile of the memory image using image information. So we have that memory dump, we can say. Okay, we are that in that image format, and we are trying to look out for that memory image profile in that memory image. Okay, so that is the image information plugin which we have used. So here are some important factors which I will show you. It's just to be noted is like this one, WinXP, this thing, suggested profile which I was talking about. So it was instantiated with this WinXP 2 into 86 profile. Okay, so it shows some suggested profiles are here, right? It shows SP2, it shows SP3, but we will be considering the first one because it has clearly mentioned this, that is this memory image which we have right now. It was instantiated with the WinXP SP2 into 86 profile. So we have to select that specific profile. See, we have found the profile of the memory image which we have used. This is stuxnet.vmem. Okay, we can start looking out for some suspicious activities in the memory now. We are trying to look out for those suspicious activities in the memory. Okay, so what you can do is you can look out for all the process in that memory image. Right now we have captured a memory image and we are trying to look into that, right? So now in order to see any malicious activities present over there, I will be looking out for all the processes which are running over there. So simply what we can do, we can write one command. Okay, here volatility.exe is there, hyphen f we have mentioned, hyphen profile will mention that is used later. Right now I'm trying to perform PSS scan. Profile we have to mention, which is when XPSP 2. Okay, rather I will just copy and paste it so that I won't make any this way, right? And PSS scan. Here we are trying to look out for this processes. Okay, listing out all the processes which are there in that memory image. Let's see, let's see. It's doing the scan, and that is the reason we'll just remove it because it was just required for the profile part, right? Sharp eyes, man. There you go. I read image info, that's why. Now, see, can you see a lot of processes are running over here, right? By just looking at the simply at the output, okay, it doesn't seem to be any suspicious process over here if you like closely look over here. But having said that, things which we need to look out for is also sometimes what happens, guys, if there's any malware, you know, they try to use the same name of the processes. For example, svc host.exe is there, right? This one. Let me change the color of the pen. svc dot this one. Sometimes the situation is such a way that okay, any malware is there which is there running in the in the memory, it will be taking the same name, okay, svc host.exe, but okay, process id will be different for it, but their parent process id also will be different. So see, the simple logic what I'm trying to tell you is that ppid is parent process id, pid is your process id, pid stands for process id, ppid stands for parent's process id. Okay, yeah, child process sagar, you can say pid is child's, right? So the logic is for one parent you can have multiple childrens, right? C1, C2, C3, and C4. Multiple children can be there. But see, for these, for one parent, you can have multiple children. But for that children, you cannot have multiple parents over there. Sometimes situation is in that way. So a lot of time you will encounter in such a way that some services are there which is running with the same name. They're having different process ID, which is fine. But if you see for them the PPID, parent process ID, it's exactly the same. Can you see this? For every svc host.exe, the parent process ID is same, isn't it? Does that make sense? But sometimes you will see there will be any svc host.exe would be running over there, which would be having different parent process ID. That will be something which will be giving an alarming situation, that this is something suspicious. Make sense? And to get a more clear view, as Diva mentioned, you can always use the command which is ps tree, process tree. That structure will be presented to you. Now, having said that, uh, something suspicious which looks to me, or anything which is different to me, is like for this, can you see lsas.exe process is there? Three processes are there which is the same name. So this will be giving you parent-child relationship between the processes, correct? Right, this way. For more better view, if I have to take it out, so for them, like explore.exe, for them this is the parent ones. Oh, sorry, child ones. Hmm. Okay, what I can do, let's see if I can grep -i sas. Will it work? That can be also done, by the way. Yes, Sagar, that can be also done. Is it egrep? Am I making wrong mistake? I thought I'm writing correct code. I've written correctly only. I have corrected it. Still. Now, see, got it. It was taking some time to analyze in this way. Can you see for servicer.exe, guys, which is having process ID is 668, correct? This one. So for these two, this one and this one, it is giving the parent process ID, which is services.exe, correct? And if I see for this last one, 680, which is giving 624. 624 is for Windows logon. And I told you this basically, when we talk about LSAS, this is responsible for security related function, right? Like handling user authentication, correct? Which makes it a bit legitimate when it is for this last one I'm talking about. This makes it more legitimate one, 680, isn't it? Because it is pointing the parent process ID as 624. And it is only one, not two. These two are having same parent process ID, correct, which is 668, which is for running some services. Whereas when you talk about lsas.exe, which is having 680 as a process ID, it is having parent process ID as 624, which is for Windows logon. Only one is there, and it is more legitimate, seems to be more legitimate. So in Windows, the parent process ID should be for your Windows logon.exe only, which is only for 680, the process ID which is of 680. Even for, you know, svc.host exe, okay, yeah, In an ideal system, it should have a parent of services.exe. Here it seems legit. These are ones fine. svc.host, svchost.exe. They are pointing to 668, which is legitimate. It is from services.exe only, but not this one, but not these two. So this gives you a good understanding that okay, this might be something suspicious over here, right? So okay, that is nice. Let's erase this. Give it a last try if it works or not. Let's see. egrep is not working, no. If I check for command line, finish execution is the cmd line. If it's not working in this way, then I will drop this one. Python 2 is not recognized. I'm not using Python 2. Remove this one. Anyway, egrep is not working at all for us. Command line I was trying to look out for. This to check for the path. What we need to look out for, we need to look out for 1928, and this will take us ages because that filter is not working. So okay, anyway, 1928, find it out. 868 is there first of all. Okay, the path for 868 is C Windows System 32 lsa.txt. Okay, one is there, which is fine. 680, if it's there any, 680, 1928. Okay, this is again from the same path, which is fine. 680, if it see for that process, 680, 680, 680, running from the command part. Okay, all of them are running for the same path. That is fine. Okay, no worries. We can see in the output that these processes, they are running from a legit path only. Didn't give any um, good information, I would say. Yes, Jiva, it will be listing the executed commands, right? Now what we can do, you can simply look out for the mal find also. If I put in this way for mal find -p for the process of 1928, let's suppose, right? Which were our suspected ones. Let's see. Yeah. And similarly, if I put for 868 also. Can you see over here? These two were having protection of page execute and read write. They have memory regions with the protection of page execute read write. Typically, memory section shouldn't be executable or writable altogether, but these permissions are there, right? So process name and path of these two suspicious finds or suspicious ones processes, they are legit, but they have multiple instances of those which are running in the memory regions which are with the wrong protections, right? So maybe this process is hollowed out, meaning the process would have been duplicated in any suspended state, and the executable portion of the process is replaced with malicious code over there. So when that process resumes, the name and the path are maintained, and this is called as your hollow process injection also. This is kind of an injection, hollow process injection. You can give it a read about that. I'm not jumping much into detail. hollow process injection it is, where the name of the files are maintained, right? So okay, see, now what we can do, if since I got a hint that okay, these are malicious, because I can do hollow finding also, but not going into much of a depth over here. Uh, Simply what we can do, let me get to the conclusion. Once I have got the suspicious ideas with these processes, what I can simply do is I can dump them over here. Proc dump -p 1928, along with that this 868 in the directory proc dump slash, right? Let's see. Program is not a directory. Okay, let me see then. Are you saying like this? I have to create a directory, that's why. If you do that, I have to switch it off, I guess. Otherwise, it will delete it. Virus and threat protection. For a while, let's switch it off. Just trying to dump it again. I can use virus total also. That is fine. See, processor dumped over here. Simply go to virus total. Although if we try to dump or get the hashes of those files also, no, it would have done the job for us, by the way, isn't it? What happened? Folder is empty. Can you see this? What it is flagged as? It is flagged as malicious, correct? So can now we say those were the malicious ones? Those processes are indeed the malicious ones, correct? Trojan, exactly. You can further look out for the C2 connections, command and control connections also. along with that. We have those plugins also, right? In VirusTotal, like connection is there, scan is also there. You can definitely look out for those things in order to check whether the connection was made by them or not. So this was just to give an idea regarding the hunting of things, how can be done in the memory as well.